All right. So Kaitlyn has got IoT.
I do have IoT. Oh, well, not really IoT. So this is about 3D printers. And what this hacker did is they went into the firmware. They found the parameter that says like max temperature. So all the safety in an IoT, in a 3D printer to keep the temps from running away is just all done in software. So if you edit that software, you can have the max temp be about the boiling point of lava, and or the surface of the sun, and heat up the extruder to as hot as it'll go. And apparently, when you do that, you kind of sort of release toxic fumes and burn your house down. So that's a nice, good attack if you're going after someone you don't like.
You know, if they had asked me, I would have said, don't give it the ability to make enough heat to burn everything down.
You would think that that would be the logical thing to do. Make a hardware sensor that would automatically just cut off after a certain point, like sort of like a thermistor, which would just cut off the power if it gets too hot. But no, they just said software. Software's fine.
It's like the 737 MAX, where it dives for the ground, but we have a software patch that compensates for that.
Because that'll work.
Yeah, well, it does work like 90% of the time. You know, 99% of the cases of failure are completely harmless, like Donald Trump would say, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so, well, that's good, clean fun. So are they going to patch it or something, I hope?
Nope. This is our lives now.
Oh, well,
let's burn our house down with our 3D printers.
Well, you know, I don't have a 3D printer, and I'm not planning to get one anytime soon. All right. Well, anyway, so I got a lot of tips about this one. The U.S. has created a bizarre situation between Princeton and Harvard. So Princeton and Harvard have announced that I will not give you feedback. I don't care what you're saying. There, Princeton is, anyway, what's going on is if you are a foreign student, you are here, your college probably shut down for this semester. So you're staying here but taking online courses, but next semester, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement has declared if you're only taking online courses, you have to leave. Yes, your student visa no longer counts. And most of the colleges are shutting down and saying we'll have everything online next semester. And to finish the joy of this, Harvard has said, if you decide to take next semester off, you're out of the program, you lose your state in seniority, you won't be able to get back and continue the program. You'll have to be at the back of a long line competing to finish your education. So foreign students are pretty much hosed. And people are trying to figure out what to do. There's some guy wants to start a organizing Twitter lobbying campaign to try to do something about it. Of course, this is part of Trump's huge plan to greatly ramp up his racism. That seems to be his plan for re-election from the last couple speeches, is to just return to absolute panicked racism. That's what he tried in 2018 too, with this caravan of immigrants from Mexico. Remember that? They were going to be Al-Qaeda and destroy us all, and after the election was over, they just forgot all about it because it was never anything anyway. He's trying to convince them that there's like armed mobs going to burn down your bank and your house, along with tearing down statues and stuff. Anyway, it's this is the problem, and I'm surprised. You know, I saw Arnold Schwarzenegger's 4th of July thing, and he said all over the world, people still want to come to America, which kind of surprises me because it seems pretty messed up here now. But he says, it's really a great place. People still want to come in, but they're really having trouble getting in and staying in. Anyway.
Yeah, this is bizarre to me because it's bizarre on a lot of levels. It really doesn't make sense in terms of, all the colleges and universities are struggling right now for money. Everybody's strapped. And as those of us in the higher education system know, the international students are paying the most by far, usually exponentially more. I was looking at our school, and I think they're up to charging like regular, of course it's free if you live in San Francisco or if you live in California and make under a certain amount of money. I think full price is like $150 a credit hour. So
it's $42 a credit hour for Americans and like $250 for foreigners. At least it was last time.
They raised it higher than that at CCSF, exponentially higher,
Yeah.
like to a shocking amount. And it blows my mind that you would want to kick out all of the highest paying students at this time, and also arguably a lot of them are the smartest students because they had to like fight tooth and nail to go to school here. So I mean,
and a lot of them will stay here and found companies like Google and Apple and stuff.
Exactly.
They incredibly benefit America.
Exactly. It's just such a stupid economic decision even if you don't pay attention to the pointless cruelty of it, which there is. But I mean, that's just what we need as a country is more brain drain, right?
Well, yeah, and so it's a shame, but of course, if we do put in Biden, then there'll be a massive reversal of pretty much everything Trump did. So God knows what's going to happen. But anyway, in the meantime, the foreign students are in a pretty bad place here. And I am very skeptical of any pressure campaign changing Trump, because this is even his own campaign staff that are screaming, and other Republicans are screaming, saying, dude, we're going to lose, because Americans actually care about things like the virus right now, and they really don't care about hating foreigners right now. That's not on their number one top concern. So just running on nothing but mindless racism is not going to win. None of them seem to give a damn about the morality, but nobody can move Trump. That's his belief, is that being Archie Bunker on steroids is his only move, and he's doing it.
He's right.
I don't understand why this would be a priority right now with everything else going on. But he also announced yesterday the schools must open in the fall. So, yeah, I mean,
yep, he did on a tweet. What were you saying, Irvin?
Saying that, in Trump's world, he's right. Everyone else is wrong.
Well, sure. That's the thing. I mean, nobody can control him. So I don't think any pressure is going to stop this, but we're going to see. Anyway, the only thing that would stop it is if it's illegal somehow, and that's what held back his wall and the Muslim ban. But I don't believe foreign students have any constitutional right to come here. So I don't think the law is going to stop it.
They do have rights, though. I mean, it's
once they're here, they have rights.
Yeah.
But you don't have an obligation to let them stay when they're no longer taking face-to-face classes. I think he will win in court on that. I don't think a lawsuit will be able to stop it. I think nothing can stop it except the next election. Anyway, then we got this hacker that sold network access.
This is awesome. This story is awesome. So there was this hacker that was selling network access for a while to the point that they even hired a sales manager, which I just find it kind of awesomely hilarious when hackers have sales and support teams.
Oh, he just brute forced RDP.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
yep.
Gee.
But was wildly successful with this attack. I mean, he
put Meterpreter on there.
Exactly.
How can anybody run Meterpreter? I can't put Meterpreter in CTFs because AV catches you.
Exactly. I mean, and it's amazing to me that there was that much low-hanging fruit that he needed a team.
Wow.
Well,
that's crazy.
Oh, this is just, I was laughing my way through this story. I thought it was really good.
This reminds me of Gary McKinnon, the UFO hacker, 15 years ago, that said, I took over the NSA because they had a Windows XP machine with no administrator password at all and open remote registry. So you could just run arbitrary code on it. And everybody, the Russians, the Chinese, and everybody were running code on it for 2 years before some idiot did it between 9 and 5. And they walk by and see all this scrolling going by. Say, wait, somebody's hacked into this machine. Well, that's the thing. That's why I think pen testers say the same thing. They say, when you look at what people are doing for security, it's god awful.
Yeah, and why I think that it's funny because I've talked to people that were really, kind of excited about their career when they got into security in the first place, and now, a few years later, they're like, I didn't realize so much of this job was going to consist of telling people not to use plain text passwords and apply patches and stuff like that.
Well, I think
So-
that, that's why I think anybody in the business for a while, they end up in social engineering and management, because the human component is such a big, at first the technology seems exciting, and then you realize the problem is the people.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The low-hanging fruit is 99% of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then,
I don't even bother looking for the deep bugs. Whenever I do pen tests on a large network, I'm just looking for default passwords. Are there, just exposed data? Okay, no, okay, good. We're good to good. We're good to go. I'm sure this program that you wrote in your free time has a ton of bugs, and I could probably find them in 30 minutes, but it's not worth my time.
Persistence through interpreter, though, that one,
Yeah.
it's just like you've got nothing on your network. Like, do you even have a firewall?
well, see, I think we're like doctors. I mean, somebody comes in, they're like overweight, they're smoking, they're drinking, and then they've got a disease. And they don't want to hear like, make your life perfect by obeying all the top 10 things. They want to find out, what can I do that's reasonable to get better now? So I think that's why they pay us, is for human judgment. What can they reasonably do? And, usually focusing on the exciting stuff technically is not the big problem. The big problem is somehow getting your people to comply with like some minimum level of standard practices. Although going to two-factor authentication everywhere would greatly improve. Then you could have glossy passwords and it wouldn't matter so much.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. And then Irvin has got dating apps leaking out.
So, everybody being stuck at home, I'm sure that they're using dating apps. It's kind of a FYI, if you're using these 5 that are mentioned, their info has been taken out.
There was one last time about like, embarrassing dating apps. I forget, I think like chubby gay dating or something even like more embarrassing than usual, leaked out all their data.
Yeah, further down there's a picture of the redacted data that they got out from one of these sites.
Web scraping, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, they just web scraped. Well, then they just got I'm not even sure that's a data breach, really. So they just got the publicly available. Oh, here they got an Elasticsearch server, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well.
AWS buckets in here, there's different, Elasticsearch.
Catholic singles, well, there you go.
Yep.
That's the most exciting place on the internet, I'm sure.
Right? It
Catholic singles, yeah.
I taught at a college one time, and there was this woman who was really, really demanding that I tell her if I had a wife. And then she was browsing like a religious singles group. So, I should have just told her I worship the devil or something. But anyway, it's
You're like, yes, I have 5.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
5 in the basement.
Would you like to be number 6?
There you are. Good. Yeah, there you are. Yeah, anyway. That's one of the many benefits of being old, is you don't have so much of that nonsense. Anyway, so a Facebook group for doctors, boy, that's got to be a sad place these days.
Yeah, one of the things that's been difficult about the quarantine, the stay-at-home orders, is it's making it difficult for people to grieve. And one of the great things to come out of the internet has been online support groups and just groups in general of people coming together. And so this is an article about a Facebook group for doctors who both grieve the people that they lose as patients, but also their colleagues, because obviously doctors are at a very high risk of getting the coronavirus.
Yeah.
And so they're taking their grief and their sorrow to Facebook, because they have nowhere else to go right now, because like I said, we're all stuck at home.
Yeah, I think this is one of the best things about Facebook and social networking is you can have groups to support you when you have problems like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's quite the transition from dating apps to grieving.
But don't worry, I have bad things to say about Facebook in a little bit. Don't worry.
Okay.
But it is good that it helps people find friends. I used to hang out in online chat rooms a decade or more ago, and a lot of people in there were in there because they were sick and dying. Very frequently, they would just vanish, and then you'd find out they died. A lot of them were like trapped homebound by being sick, and so they became personalities in a chat room. And it was a lot better than, I guess, not having anybody to talk to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, then I've got Hong Kong. Well, three of us found all kinds of stuff about Hong Kong. It's pretty exciting. I mean, I wondered when America sort of collapsed into anarchy, as we have, no real government at all. I wondered what our enemies were going to do, and I expected them to invade America. But I realized when I read from experts, this is naive. They are doing what they've wanted to do for years, like China has been waiting to just crush Hong Kong in total violation of their promise to the UK. And now that the US is not present at all in international relations, they can get away with it. And so they're doing it. So everybody is now, they're changing to just complete domination, closing free speech, passing laws where they can jail people for life for vague crimes like defaming the government or something. And so that means the US has now declared we are not going to consider Hong Kong a partner. And people don't want to answer official police requests from Hong Kong anymore because they no longer think they're going to use the data in any good way. TikTok is going to be banned and exiting Hong Kong to try to avoid being caught in the ban of Hong Kong applications. They're censoring the libraries because this is a big thing in China, is to erase history and teach people false histories and remove everything you don't like. And so anyway, you guys had some other articles here about this. Why don't you chime in?
Yeah, no, I mean it's interesting, but not a surprise. This happened 10 years ago with Google in China,
Yep.
and I mean it's only going to escalate. I was maybe a little surprised that we haven't really heard much of anything from the UK on this stuff. Like they haven't piped in. I think they're.
Oh, I saw that.
I think they're in a similar situation as we are, where they're just.
No, a couple of weeks ago, the UK announced that they would let anybody that wanted to emigrate to the UK as a citizen from Hong Kong now to escape. And Hong Kong greatly railed and said, you're terrible, bad people about it. So I didn't put it in links, but I saw that go by.
Yeah,
the UK is the one that gave Hong Kong to China, and they guaranteed freedom for 50 years. And since they didn't, the UK said, well, you can all just come to the UK then.
Right. I did see that. I guess I just meant in terms of honoring their agreement to let Hong Kong remain under sovereign rule for more time. So
it's surprising how much China just totally ignored it. It kind of shows that they are as bad as people say they are.
Yeah, it's really not a concern to honor your agreements that you make with international governments. So that should tell everyone something. However, you know, one of the messed up things about this was one of the articles that I linked on this was, you know, I have a hard time reconciling this, because on one hand is the article where United States is looking at banning TikTok and other Chinese social media apps.
Yep.
You know, on one hand, okay, yeah, I agree, but on the other hand, it's like, wait a minute, you just want us to have applications that have your backdoors in them, not other governments. And how do you think this is going to work out exactly, since we are already having problems with Chinese APTs in our government and private networks? Like, how exactly do you think this is going to work out?
Right.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, I'm thinking I'm going to subscribe to more newspapers. It's going to be my next act of political activism, because I think the only thing that makes America special is the free press. I think every other part of the government has shown no resilience against tyranny, and the free press is what makes us different than these other places more than anything else.
Well, if you look at the senators who are spearheading, or the legislators, I should say, that are spearheading this movement in the U.S. On the CNN article, it really looks like a lot of virtue signaling to dear leader. Because, you know, it's popular to be on the China hate bandwagon right now. So I don't think that they're actually trying to do this to accomplish anything useful. I think they're doing it to look patriotic and back up.
There's certainly a lot of that.
Yeah.
And I certainly don't want a war with China, but Hong Kong is sort of the flashpoint. This reminds me of Vietnam. We didn't have a war with Russia. Instead, we picked someplace in the middle and fight over that like a dog with a bone. so we don't have to like directly have a war with the other nation.
Well, clearly the U.S. doesn't care about Hong Kong at all.
We care about the money.
Yeah, but if we really cared about the money, I think we'd be offering to bring over. I mean, speaking of smart immigrants, I mean, you know, I would think that you would want to have people from the world's banking capital and some of the best universities in the world come to your country. But
yeah, you know, I think it would be great if we offered to let everybody from Hong Kong come here to escape this tyranny. That would be great. But Trump's totally on the other side of that.
Yeah.
Down to all foreigners are evil. We have to keep them all out, which is, the evidence does not support that at all.
No, especially, I mean, you know, if, again, like I hate to throw human rights to the wayside, but since that's where the discussions are nowadays, even if you do that, even if you totally toss out the human element to this, it would be a much better economic decision.
Sure, if you measured the value of humans in objective terms, the logical thing would be to kick us out and let them in. Because people that have been in America for more than 3 generations are mostly sort of ignorant and lazy and stupid and not very productive compared to immigrants that work hard and get stuff done.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, anyway, I certainly see it at college. Many of the immigrants are the A students right at the top, learning everything, you know. Anyway, so then we got, oh yeah, this one, the F5 devices, right? Or big IP.
Yeah. So this was an interesting sort of breaking news story over the weekend that I thought y'all might be interested in. I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, the F5 stuff, supposedly so awful you can exploit it with just a tweet.
Yeah, and some new breaches dropped over the holiday weekend, and essentially, like one of the ones that stood out to me here was a quote from Krebs of Krebs on Security, and he was like, "If you didn't patch it by Sunday, just assume that it's already been exploited."
Yeah.
So
and there was another one 2 years ago, and another one before that. I think there's been a lot of problems with the F5 devices.
Yeah. So, and I think that they have a fairly small market share, but still, for the companies that have them in place, that's gonna be a major problem.
Oh yeah. They said, I saw the people panicking about 5 days ago saying you got a patch now.
Yeah, and so, and I know too, at the end of the week, right before the holidays, like I was trying to reach people last week to deal with some business stuff, and a lot of people were out of the office.
So is it just a default password or what? Let's see.
There was more than one way that they could do it. There were a bunch of different options for the attack. So
this looks like arbitrary file read.
Yeah, and also they could just redirect users to malicious
rejection.
Yeah.
With no password at all. Ooh, bloody awesome. If they could put some version of this in a virtual machine, I could make like a project out of it. But I don't suppose the F5 software is available publicly.
Well, I suppose you got to go to the right forum for that.
Well, I can't have homework that's illegal. I mean, I know I'm just.
Is that a challenge, Sam?
You know, I was just hearing a podcast from Human Hacker, from Tribe of Hackers, and this guy said, I got into social engineering, and then I went to DEF CON 16, and they had a social engineering contest, so I went to it, and people at DEF CON for the contest were calling random teenage girls and getting them to read their credit card over the phone, and people in the audience were just writing down the credit card numbers. And I went to Jeff Moss and said, hey, man, this contest is unethical. And he said, I don't know, that seems to be the best we can do. If you want a better one, make your own contest. So that's what he did. He made a social engineering contest with all these restrictions. So, you know, apparently they haven't always been all that worried about breaking the law at DEF CON. I was surprised when I went to Hope, like about 9 years ago, and they had Captain Crunch and other people on stage calling people at real stores, tricking them into doing stupid things.
Wow.
Similarly, I mean, they're just not too worried about stepping over the legal line as much as I expected.
Yeah.
But I think as the industry matures and people become more professional, they're more careful about that. But anyway,
But again, by the same token, I mean, it's a lot of the stuff we do could be illegal just because the laws are so vague, like the CFAA. So it's kind of hard to know in some cases.
Well, it certainly is, and I've had my legal problems. This is why I think, but that I think is just, if you do business at all in America, you're just going to get sued for one thing or another. And so you just have to have a lawyer, and legal risk is just one of your company risks you take on.
Mm-hmm.
But you certainly can take reasonable precautions not to do things that are obviously illegal. And this guy said, I tried to design the social engineering contest, and then I talked to my lawyer, and he said, don't do that, don't do that, do that. And so that's why you have a lawyer, to try to guide you into the less risky move. Very much like the security consultants we were talking about earlier. They can't fix all your problems, but they guide you into the less risky.
And I do think that if you end up in court and you can supply a record of the steps that you've taken to try to maintain compliance to your best ability, that's going to help you.
I think it does. I mean, really, the law is not like absolutely clear. You just have a chance to argue and say, I have taken reasonable precautions to accomplish the purpose of the law, and you might prevail. Yeah. Well, anyway, then we got schools leaking out all the data. That's another charming thing.
This article is pretty in-depth. Since 2005, 24.5 million records.
I heard there are 40 million students in the U.S., so that's like half of them.
That's like half of them. There are quite a number of charts and graphs to take all this data and give to you in a way.
Oh, that's charming.
Yeah, this is a great article, Irvin.
Oh, we're like top performers in this regard.
Yep. Yep. California is the state that has had the most breaches.
We're really number one.
Yep.
Wow, is Texas? Texas looked like Texas was up there too.
Texas
wow,
is way
It's
behind.
up there for
scroll up.
K through 12.
The last one you were at. Yeah, down. Yeah.
Oh yeah, well, Texas is no, not really.
Keep going.
Red, orange.
Keep going further.
79, 157, 89. It looks like basically just scales of population.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, you got here's where Texas beats everybody in the K through 12.
K through 12. How much? Boy, I tried to notify high schools at one time of their vulnerabilities, and I gave up in a hurry because they would just like blame me and yell at me and deny everything and not fix it. And I said, "Oh, I'm not even wasting my time on these people. I wouldn't. I don't know how much data they have, but I certainly think they don't have the money to hire staff that understand how to protect it."
Right.
I can't believe Indiana is doing that well.
Right.
Might just be population.
The next one is the U.S. colleges, and that's where Word King.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, wow. You're really number one.
Yeah. The number of colleges that are affected by data breaches, we are not number one in that regard.
Not
Interesting.
percent of colleges.
Yeah, percent of colleges, with Alaska being 100%.
So we must just have a lot of colleges so that even a small percentage is a large total number.
Right, right. And
well,
yeah,
because there's
five,
one or
five data breaches and 5 colleges.
Oh, well, that'll do it. Okay. Then, man, this is Harvard.
Yeah, right. And then they have the list of the biggest breaches. So Maricopa,
Harvard
Harvard,
Computer Society, no less.
Georgia Tech, UCLA, San
Georgia
Diego.
Tech? Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember this one. I actually used, I found a bunch of vulnerabilities for California colleges and actually contacted the governor and the head of the California education system and said, we're going to have another Maricopa if we don't do something about this. So they did. But anyway, this one caught the attention of California people, I know.
Yeah, and then the next thing is the type of breaches. The highest one was hacking incidents.
Really?
The next one is unintentional disclosures. And then theft, reports of physical data being available, the theft or hack committed by insiders, and theft or loss of stationary devices.
I greatly question these numbers because I've always heard it said that the number one problem is your own employees leaking the stuff out. I wonder if they're just not counting those or not detecting those or something. That would seem like the most likely is your own employees accidentally put the data somewhere stupid, but I don't know. Hacking being number one, that's very surprising.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised that people stole 52 desktop computers. That seems like it would be easier said than done.
Oh, not at all. Certainly not at any college I've ever worked at. They don't really lock the doors very much, and there's weird people wandering around all the time. You could totally
I guess you could.
There's a time when somebody donated a whole bunch of equipment to the college. So I got like 5 students with pickup trucks and cars. And on Sunday, we drove like 5 truckloads of stuff in and started loading it. We were doing it for hours before one of the campus cops came up to ask, like, what are we? And I said, boy, I'm kind of glad you guys show up to ask what we're doing. He said, no, I'm just here to tell you, you can't park there. You could totally like back up the truck, break in and steal like truckloads of stuff and nothing would happen.
Wow, that's amazing.
I had my ID out and everything. He said, boy, I'm kind of glad somebody comes to ask. He said, oh, well, I don't know what you're doing.
That's horrible. That's horrible. There's still two more charts.
Oh, number of breaches, number of college breaches.
Yeah.
Oh, by year.
Yep.
Not just monotonically going up.
Wow. Wow.
No clear pattern.
And then you got the last one.
Not even in number of records. Wow. I thought everything just went up and up and up, but it's not that simple.
Mm-hmm.
Methodology. Well, that's pretty interesting stuff. Yeah.
That's a good article, Irvin.
Yeah. Does not have a clear, simple message, but it's certainly a lot of useful data. That's kind of like, I saw an article over the weekend where someone said the Boogaloo Boys showed up with their guns to be a right-wing protest, and then the Black Lives Matter showed up with their guns to be a protest. And after a brief scuffle, they decided that they were on the same team and went to march against the police together. And they said, the thing about this is it doesn't fit the narrative. And, anyway.
I think the main takeaway from this is that, schools, K through 12 and higher ed are notoriously insecure. And a lot of the times these institutions pay no mind to this stuff until it's too late. One cool thing that I saw within the past year is when I was out at RIT last time, I was talking to the coach of their cyber competitions team, and he's doing something really cool. Rob Olson, he's teaches a lot of the ethical hacking courses out there like I do. And one thing he was doing during this last school year, which I thought was kind of ingenious, was he took his upper level students to go run as a trial program to run a pen test on a county school system network, which I thought was ingenious, because then the school system gets their testing done for free through the university students, and then the students get the experience of having to conduct a real engagement.
I did some smaller versions of that in some of my classes, and it's definitely very good.
That's something I'd really like to do eventually here.
Yeah, you could probably do it at the college. Tim has gone along with it in the past. Anyway, so all right, and then I wanted to say a few things about COVID. I heard this podcast, and it actually has a transcript, which I was real glad to see. It's from the New York Times, and there's a transcript here, which helps because it's easier to go back through, but there were a lot of things about coronavirus that I learned from this, and I thought it was worth talking about. The main big one for me is, although this is not a respiratory disease, it spreads through respiration, but then it attacks your blood vessels. And that's why everybody was totally on the wrong track comparing it to like the 1918 flu or the SARS. It doesn't attack your lungs primarily, which is why people have been going nuts trying to understand it. So it causes blood oxygen. It does not necessarily affect your blood oxygen. It clots your blood, so organs don't get enough oxygen and they suffer. And therefore, you have to really do tests, because there's not a clear symptom. When you show up sick with this disease, it's not always coughing or low blood oxygen or anything like that. So it mutates every 2 weeks. So it started in China, in Wuhan, then it spread to Asia, Iran, Italy, and then it mutated significantly to become much more infectious, like 10 times more infectious, but apparently not more lethal. And that's the one that spread to the US. And this is apparently the normal evolution of the flu. I've read about it in novels about pandemics in the past, it normally mutates to something less severe and vanishes on its own. Because, just from Darwin, if the first one is too deadly, it kills people too fast, they don't have enough time to spread it. The version that is less lethal spreads more. So realistically, you expect within a year or two, it may become less lethal. And that's what happened in 1918. In 1918, it infected 70% of all the people in the world. And then it couldn't infect any more people because you had herd immunity. So many people had it, they couldn't spread it anymore. So it moved into pigs. And it stayed in pigs until another generation of humans were born that were not immune, because the ones that had it couldn't get it again. Then it spread to humans, but by then it had mutated. And now it's just the normal seasonal flu, the H1N1 flu, which has a low death rate and is still spreading and infecting people, but it's not killing so many people. So anyway, the other thing, which apparently is highly controversial because the World Health Organization refuses to admit it, but hundreds of scientists have now agreed aerosols transmit it. They try to pretend only the big particles from like sneezing and coughing matter, but the aerosols matter. So if you're inside your host, restaurants and movie theaters and college classrooms should just be shut for years. Because if you're in a room with other people, it spreads like cigarette smoke, this aerosol, and it affects everybody in the room. And it's just, if you spend like a half hour in a room with a bunch of other people, that's very dangerous. Being outside is much safer because it just blows away. So that's why all these protests did not cause any measurable increase in infection, but indoor events will. So anyway, I thought it was very interesting. And so they're talking about schools. A lot of people say we should open the grade schools because kids are not much of an infector of adults, because kids do not primarily get respiratory symptoms. They get inflammation symptoms. So their coughing and sneezing is not spreading it. So they don't spread it to adults. They say most of what happens is adults spread it to children. And
a new virus with pandemic potential emerging.
Sorry.
Oh, so, yeah, anyway, so the however, if you were to open the schools, the teachers would be at risk, not from the kids, but from the other people in school, the other teachers. And this is what happened here. They tried to have a meeting last week in the South Bay of administrators planning how to open the schools, and the administrators got sick by spreading coronavirus at the meeting. So that is the main risk here. I think teachers teaching grade school their main risk is the same as any other worker. You're now going to be in a workplace with other adults transmitting it among yourselves. And so they should have masks and social distancing and not have face-to-face meetings around a board table and all that jazz. So anyway, this is very interesting to all of us in teaching, because there's clearly huge pressure to open our colleges. I think our colleges are in deep trouble. I mean, if they can't have face-to-face classes, they can't have the foreign students, the local governments are going to run out of money. And then they're going to tell us you have to like have plastic barriers between the tables and only half as many students in a class. And how are you going to pay for all that? It's crazy. And a bunch of people are probably not going to enroll. I think it's real grim for education of adults.
So what I don't get is why don't we have outside classes?
Some people are talking about that. I think that would be a very good thing when you switch to classes outside where possible, but that's only going to be possible in places with good weather.
Yeah, because I'm thinking like, it's windy outside, and you have to have a paper book or stuff flying everywhere.
Gonna make it tough for night school.
I really think online education is the future for years for adults. Now the kids maybe you can do better with the kids, but adults, I think it's online education.
So I think too, like, educators are really gonna have to step it up to make that experience be worthwhile for students. And what I'm starting to see is that just from talking to a lot of students who had to go online last semester, a lot of the teachers just sort of automated their classes in a taking like a set it and forget it mindset. And what students really are asking for and what a lot of them need is that weekly interaction. So we're going to have to find better ways to have live interactions with our students, and for them to be able to do some sort of community building and work with each other just like they would in the classroom.
I think you're right. My sister does that. She uses Zoom breakout rooms and makes them do group projects. I'm planning to add a compliance officer to my team to contact the students every week and make sure they're posting stuff on the discussion board. I don't have the answer, but we certainly need to start experimenting.
So I did both of those things. Well, not the compliance officer because I did it myself, but I did both of those things this semester, and I got really good results. And the students really seemed to stay engaged. So, I mean, tools like that are great.
I think we all have to step our game because I think we all have to improve our game because going back into big physical classrooms is just crazy. And I don't see that coming anytime soon.
No, and I think the other thing is that colleges are really going to need to reevaluate. You can't keep charging $50,000 to students to take classes online, and we can't be sticking with the same bloated model that we've been using for the past few years, where you pay all these administrators hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, and you're just bilking the students out of money to take these online courses, especially when they can go take MOOCs for free. So
well, no, I think Scott Galloway explains this exactly. I think the reason you pay for an Ivy League school is not the education. You could totally get 90% of the value of the education at 1/10 of the price. You are paying for the stamp of approval on you, like USDA grade A, that you will now be hunted by good employers. It's just a status thing. And that's a real thing. Going to those Ivy League schools does get you a better job. And nobody really cares if the education actually teaches you anything. They just want the certification of approval.
That and the networking. And I'm not sure how, to some extent they can transition the networking online, but to in other ways, not so easily, because a lot of that happens at events, student and alumni events and stuff.
That's absolutely true. But I mean, City College is, of course, totally out of this. We're the free alternative. But we're funded by tax money, which is certainly not forthcoming from the feds and going to be consumed by other things by the state. So we're in for definitely a hard time, I think.
Right.
Anyway, so then we got the Iranian stuff, which is very interesting.
Yeah, so Stuxnet too. If anybody was watching the news this week.
Thing that blew up. You got a picture of the thing? Yeah, no?
Yeah, there's a picture in the BBC article.
Yeah, that's it. The building totally burned down. For no apparent reason, the Iranian nuclear facility just had a fire.
Yeah, no apparent reason. And there have been all kinds of stories as to what caused this. First, it was somebody said, "Oh, it's the Israelis bombed it," and then there were these
cheetahs, the Homeland cheetahs.
The Homeland cheetahs took responsibility, but a lot of analysts are saying like this totally doesn't add up. We don't think they really did it. They're just trying to claim credit for it. And then
did we do it? Because we certainly did something like it a few years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe so. We don't really know if it was us or another nation state. There seems to be a lot of, I don't want to say consensus, but there seems to be a lot of conjecture or that this was a cyber attack. So, which would make a lot of sense considering the historical context.
I'm not aware of a cyber attack that can do that kind of damage unless it goes through a 3D printer.
I was going to say, we just discussed that.
I mean, that looks like a real bomb to me, but what do I know?
It does. Though one of these articles here does say that they were, I think it's the foreign policy article. And amusingly enough, it was another site that was for making centrifuges. So
a centrifuge company blew it up? The competitor?
Maybe so. We don't really know, but it definitely, I think, escalates the tensions, the international tensions a little bit.
Yeah, well, like I say, as the coronavirus is distracting all the governments from normal law enforcement, you'll just see more and more people that want to make trouble making trouble. Now's the time to get away with anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway. All right, and then we got, they had a Microsoft tool. This looks pretty interesting.
Yeah, this tool was released recently. It is on GitHub, but it does ask you to log into their system. Where is it?
They're Azure, right?
Yeah, their Azure.
So if you don't have an
Microsoft
Azure account, you can't use it, right?
Right, or a Azure Active Directory account.
Okay.
And you can do things like IR on your infrastructure with these tools.
Yep, but it'll analyze your memory image for malware, which sounds pretty great.
Mm-hmm. It's great that it's native. It's just kind of sucks that, okay, it's just tied to Azure.
Yeah, it sounds like a great thing. I guess I'm not going to be able to test it easily without an Azure account, but still, it sounds like a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know Microsoft had another free tool to protect Linux servers a couple of weeks ago, but again, you couldn't get it without an official Microsoft account. So I'm not able to test them or assign them to students, but it is nice that they exist, I guess. I'm just suspicious because of Microsoft's previous antivirus products being so terrible. I would like to be able to test it.
Yeah, same here, but I guess we'll have to wait until we have an account to be able to test it.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, anyway, oh wait, I wonder how this happened. Did I skip one or something?
You certainly did.
Oh, that explains why.
Yeah.
Well, let's go back to this one then.
How rude, Sam. Oh my gosh, I'm so
I got
offended.
confused.
I demand reimbursement.
That's right. We'll have to double your pay this week. So.
Yes. Okay. A bunch of companies, in the goodness of their hearts, have boycotted Facebook due to its use by the Russians and white supremacists and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And aren't they wonderful companies that they care so much about the American people? Well, maybe that's not the case. Shocker. It turns out that a bunch of these companies that are boycotting Facebook and virtual signaling how much they're in favor of equality are still advertising on Russian social media sites that do things like actively deny gay users from participating, including Coca-Cola, Adidas, and Redbook. Yes, there's actually
pretty well in Russia, so I can see how advertising in Russia would be appealing to them.
Right. So like, Starbucks, Ford, Colgate, Vans, North Face, etc. They're all, they said, oh yeah, no, we're totally on your side. We're totally, we can't have we won't do any business with people who are bigots or whatever. But then when it comes to Russia and other countries, they're like, okay, here, have our money, have our support. We're not going to look bad here, only in America. So.
Yeah,
it's almost like these companies care more about how they look than the values that they're espousing.
No,
well,
I know it's crazy, huh? But
that was Milton Friedman's corporate capitalism. You're only supposed to care about the share price, nothing else.
yes,
This is what they would teach until quite recently. Anyway, I think now people are beginning to have a sort of broader idea of who your stakeholders are and try to move into like socially responsible corporations. But that's kind of a new trendy thing that hasn't taken off too much yet.
Nope.
So anyway.
Just a reminder that the corporations are still not your friends.
They never were supposed to be. This is a new idea that they would be anything other than just making money by any means necessary.
Yep.
And so it's not, I think, much consent about it yet. Anyway, I don't think we skipped anything else. Let's see. All right.
Seems like there are ways to make money and not be totally unethical, but.
Well, the thing is, you can make more money by being unethical, and that's how the market works. Whoever can make the most money wins.
Well, that's why, I see movements to try to do something like in Europe, and what they do is you can't just put everything in plastic single-use containers because they make you pay the cost of what it's going to cost to actually get rid of the trash you produce up front, which would be a good move. So, this is why you need government regulation, limiting capitalism. Otherwise, this is all the tragedy of the commons. You can do something that's good for you, but bad for people in general. And that's what you need government to add a rule to restrict that.
Right. I had to take an economics class in college, unfortunately. And so I ended up taking environmental economics, which sounded interesting. And it goes on to how we can use economics to solve environmental issues, because obviously the biggest environmental polluters are the big corporations, are the big industries.
Yeah.
And so you do things like you have credits that like carbon credits, for example, that companies can sell and pass around. So they basically have a pollution budget. Because the reason why companies are unethical is because they realize that they can do things and then they could save them money, but what's ending up happening is that they're just passing the cost along to either future generations or to the local governments. And by saying, no, you're going to pay for this, you're going to have to pay for the carbon you're putting in the air, companies start behaving more ethically. So if you put these economic incentives on companies, artificial or otherwise, you can get some real change.
Yeah, I think that's why we needed Elizabeth Warren, and I still hope that Bernie will put Elizabeth Warren in his cabinet somewhere, because she's the one I think is really the leader that has good plans for all this stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Any more comments? Well, I'm going to stop this one.